Okay, so I grab two faces. I'm in face mode, right? Right click face mode. Shift right click, extrude. Pull it out there. Notice when I extrude, this is called a normal extrude. It extrudes out from wherever the face is, the direction the face is facing. So if they're on an angle, they start extruding away from that angle that they're on. When you extrude, there's this little tiny circle in there. If you click it, you will now be extruding just straight in the X, Y, or Z. The other one's called extrude on normal, and you'll notice a difference the more you use it. So I did that once, and then I did it again. I usually don't do this and then shape the thumb, because it's way more work. What's a better method? Pull one out, start shaping it. Some things for you to learn when you're shaping things. If I want to change the thickness of the top there, move those two together, as long as I'm working on 90 degrees, which is where I usually start with all this stuff, I can use scale to move 2 points at the same time. So when I'm looking at this little red, blue, green box and the yellow one, do you know what the difference between these things is? This red one here goes that way. This green one, you won't see probably any. Oh, I got an extra point. Be careful when you're selecting. How do I get rid of that thing? Control, and I just drag a box around it. And I make sure that that box doesn't go through to the ones I had selected. Although it did. Or I just shift select both of these. Try it again. Remember that F key? It's very handy for making sure you don't have a selection, because I use it quite a bit. Like if I accidentally had one selected over here, I told you Judy Fawn's in the middle of my class. So where I was with this thing, if you select 2 points, you can use scale to move them back and forth and scale the size. And this is where I start shaping things. Let's pull this down, I'll grab these two, I'll move them up at the same time. I tend to make things very mechanical when I start, just to get the basic shape of things down. No sense in trying to do the both sides at the same time, although if I'm trying to do realistic stuff and I look at my finger, it ain't straight. And it's not the same on both sides, it's different. It's got a curve through it, right? So then I'd start doing that later. So I'm gonna start shaping this thing, and I often shape it in here. And then I'm gonna grab these two, and I'm gonna extrude again. And I'm gonna hit this blue guy here, and that'll switch to rotation. I can rotate this thing. Look at your thumb and hold out your hand. Your fingers come straight off the palm, straight. And with that, where's your thumb come from? And what angle is it on? Follow the top of your finger. What does it go across? The top of your hand. Hey, that's cool. Follow the top of your thumb. Where does it go? Down the side of your arm. Right? The flat part on your thumb connects to the flat side of your arm. So you got to look at that thing. How many people, because they watch my stupid videos, or I got a couple tutorials, and Adam's got one you can go through, and I'll stick them up there if you want to go. There's 100 of them on the internet I've seen. Everybody does the same thing. They pull a thumb straight out the side, and it's like a finger locked on. This thing is like rotated 45 degrees, 30 degrees, 30 to 45 degrees in there. It's not straight off, right? So you got to start worrying about that kind of stuff. Where's the top of this thumb versus the side? And so then I'd continue working on this thing, pulling this thing out, scaling it down. The center yellow dot scales in all directions. The red, green, and blue scale in a single direction. You can move things by face. Try to reconnect and reestablish some of this form. And this is where it gets all wacky, and I got to start fixing this vertice by vertice now. It's straightening things out. This is where modeling this way becomes super tedious, because you're spending piece by piece. And didn't I just say it doesn't come straight off there? It's kind of 45 degrees. Maybe I want to take all this stuff and start rotating it. Moving it into position, W, E, and R. Oops, should look at this from the right thing. This is one creepy ass hand now, because these things need to move, and this is the process of sculpting this stuff. I did this for 18 years, point by point. And then somebody said, hey, there's this thing called ZBrush where you can like not deal with any points. You can just move stuff. They kind of have that stuff in here too. It actually started in programs like Maya. And this thumb is really horrendous. Right, so I just rotate around. You'll notice that I often will drag a box. Why am I dragging that box? Getting the points on this side and the back side. Because I'd rather do it symmetrical as much as possible, trying to keep the symmetry so that I don't get this warped thumb. That's why a lot of times I'll extrude a thumb straight off, and then I will cut the thumb off the model, rotate it 45 degrees, and connect it back into the spot, because it's easier to mechanically model things in straight lines on this kind of program. Anyways, so I'm always grabbing a box so I can get both sides. And you'll notice that no matter what I do, I can't really shape the thumb the way the thumb is shaped and have this little contour in there. You're not going to get that kind of detail at this level of model. In order to get this little crease in here, I have at least 3 lines to get a crease. I've got 1. How do you add another one? What you'll find is I want to add another line across here, right? If I go to edge, edge is what the lines are all connected to. Shift right click. We were doing extrude before. Do not extrude edges, please, unless you know what you're doing. I'm going to go insert edge loop. What is an edge loop? An edge loop is lines that are concentric. They go all the way around the model, they join back up. So if I insert edge loop, this now allows me to go in here and start modeling these vertexes and pulling them in. Notice that I missed the backside one. And again, I try to almost always do 2 at a time. So if you really wanted to model this thing, you're gonna, like the shape of it, you're really going to need to keep adding sections to control that stuff. The more you add, the better, the more control you'll have. I have no control over this arc down here because I really only have 2 points. I don't have a midpoint. How do I add a midpoint? Shift right click on an edge, insert edge loop, and you're going to find that sometimes, it worked this time, sometimes it won't insert an edge loop for you. And we'll get to why that happens. If you look at that thumbnail, the way I got it there, is it nice and straight and even along there, or is it all wanky on its wacky angles? It looks like somebody like skewed that thumb. It's not straight up. So that's one of the things you want to do as you go. I don't like to have too many of these things curve off into wacky directions. So I got to start fixing this kind of stuff. I'm trying to keep it as symmetrical as possible at this point so that I can keep it organized. Just grab the middle point here, add a little bit of a hump. Just grab these ones here and pull it down. And you can start to shape this stuff. Look at it from the side, and again, you don't want to make your fingers completely straight out. You want to hold your hand in a relaxed position like it was just sitting at the side of your, that's really what you want to model. Something with a little bit of curvature. So even when I look at these fingers, I start to add a little bit. Again, I don't have too many sections in them. I don't have enough to really shape them. So for this part of the process, what I'm really after is something I'll show you.